Welcome everybody to Rad Pod and Chill. I'm Heidi Kuda. I'm here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity, and this is our weekly recap of our weekly episode where we break down some of the week's news, and we also talk a bit about the previous episode. We had a killer show with Melissa Jo Peltier, who directed a brilliant documentary. I'd like to show a clip or two from the documentary tonight if we can. No?
Oh, yes, from the documentary. Yeah,
we'll be able to. And there's a lot going on, but one of the things about being besties with Jim Stewartson is sometimes he likes to punk you. And he just told me he liked my nail polish color, which reminded me that I hadn't applied it yet. So I'm going to be applying nail polish. Well, Jim tells you what it's like to go after tankies all day. Jim, back to you.
Hold on. Before we do anything.
What?
I need to give a shout out to John Fetterman.
Oh. Yeah.
John, way to stand the fuck up, man. Do the right thing, bro. I hope you get better.
Okay.
Depression is real, and being in a position of that level of stress, when you're being attacked by a bunch of crazy motherfuckers, will depress a person. You know, it will make an existing condition worse. I had depression, you know, in various forms my whole life, and I can tell you, like, you know, it's very, very hard to, you know, hear that kind of shit and sort of come out the other side without being pretty seriously hurt.
Yeah.
And on top of that, a brain injury, which is basically what a stroke is. You know, it's no wonder. I'm glad he's taking care of himself. He's getting good care. And, you know, anybody out there who has depression, you're not alone. Don't ever let anyone tell you you are.
It would be great if Jim actually had, you know, any experience being harmed. You know, unfortunately, it's all been just one big walk in the park. I'm not actually. My default is just to be a punk ass, but no, seriously, like, we have had firsthand experience of what it's like to be harmed continually, to have these malignant whisperers, and some of them very loud, continually assaulting our psyche. And, you know, Jim, when you talk about coming out the other side, I think what's so brilliant about what you're doing right now is that by you knowing what's actually happening both on the horseshoe left and the right, you're smoking all these assholes out of their hovels, and they're exposing themselves. And I'm glad that it is bothering you less. I'm sure it still is hard some days. I know you wrote about exhaustion, and bravo, because I think that's really important. But I find it to be fascinating that even some casual observer who follows us can actually see now what's really going on. None of this is about ideology, or if it is about ideology, it's certainly been perverted along the way. But these all these accounts tell on themselves now, I think.
They're all showing their whole ass. I mean, all of them.
Or that.
No, seriously though, like, at this point, you know, so it used to be that the tankies, you know, tried to kind of blend in with the left, but it's not at all like that anymore. Like, you know, Chapo and these monsters out there who are just brainwashing the left into exactly the same shit as the right, like anti-vax, right? Nazis in Ukraine. There is no fucking difference anymore in the core message, right? There was always the commonality of don't blame Russia, blame Hillary. That was all. They always had that in common.
Right.
But now they're just going full into the same agenda, which is psyops, brainwashing people into these anti-democratic and frankly suicidal ideas, like the vaccine is a bioweapon, or there's a bunch of Nazis in Ukraine. There's just no difference between the two. And so for me, at this point, having heard literally every possible thing that anyone could ever say, I just see it as pure information at this point.
Yeah,
right?
it's amazing.
Like,
Jackie's
it doesn't bother me in the slightest when I get these brigades. I love them because it just shows me exactly what's going on, and it shows me exactly who's who. For example, I had this crazy ass Chapo brigade, and I don't know, way over 100 blue checks with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of subscribers jumped on this.
They were summoned.
This brigade. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. You have been, influenced or something into believing this bullshit. So thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind putting myself out there, but it is not recommended for the casual viewer. It's not fun, getting literally thousands of comments calling you insane and the shit lived and whatever the fuck. But so
we're kind of used to it.
But at a minimum, I want to show people that these people should not be afraid of them. They're just assholes behind a Twitter account like anybody else, right? And the difference is they're lying. They are liars. They're wrong and lying. And I don't give a shit what side of the aisle you pretend to be on. If you're spreading disinformation and hurting people with your bullshit, I will call you out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to take this time always when we talk about the horseshoe to refer to the, I think, quite epic report that I did with a colleague for Byline Times on an indictment of a Kremlin cutout, FSB cutout, I should say, with the last name of Ionov, who for 10 years, and this is just one guy, one example, for 10 years, according to the DOJ, was paying ops on the left and ops on the right to cause chaos and destabilization in America. And he was paying political groups on the left and on the right. And sadly, people can be purchased for very small amounts of money because he wasn't paying much. But Cal Exit was an op, which is the California, version of Brexit. Various factions of that involved Dana Rohrabacher, Aaron Banks, and Nigel Farage. Those two of Brexit fame. The fact is, an Atlanta group that was an anti-colonialist group was paid to show up at Meta to protest the fact that Meta at that point was taking down anti-Ukraine Facebook pages. That very same group formed an alliance with the Oath Keepers. And I think it was the Oath Keepers. I'd have to look at my research. But the point being that if people can release themselves of ideology, and I get it, everybody wants heroes. I want heroes. I do have heroes. But the heroes that you might be seeking out, who purport to be on the left, quite often, as Jim has been pointing out for days now, are not who and what they say they are, and they're doing the work of Putin, full stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to make clear one thing. Not everybody who's in those movements, in fact, almost all of them, don't know that they're being yanked around, right? So for any leftists out there, you know, watching this, it's not your fault that you believe this stuff.
Yeah.
You got pulled into an op that has been running for you know, since at least 2016, which is to pull a bunch of angry white dudes out of Gamergate.
Yeah.
Right. I want to explain something real quick. Gamergate and misogyny is the core of this. It always has been, but really directly the core of this. Gamergate morphed into two different movements. Let me be very, very clear. The group of people who were involved in Gamergate were on both the right and the left. There were plenty of people on both sides who got involved in that misogynistic bullshit. So what happened is, in 2015, Steve Bannon got involved and pulled a whole bunch of them off into the alt-right.
Just peeled them right off.
A bunch of the people on the left got pulled off into Chapo and these other, you know, hard left groups, trolling groups, frankly, that were there to deliver the same message as the alt-right. That Hillary Clinton is a warmongering baby eater, right? And that the Russians didn't do anything. And if you think the Russians did have anything to do with anything, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That is the same message on both sides.
Yeah.
The right peeled off to Richard Spencer, Jack Posobiec, and the fucking alt-right. And the hardcore Gamergate trolls on the left went to Chapo. Chapo then proceeded to run psyops on the left for 7 fucking years, and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
They were the one who helped generate Bernie Bros.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who created the misogyny that came out of the whole Bernie Bro phenomenon.
Yeah.
Guess why? Because they came from Gamergate. Because they are fucking incels. They are misogynists at core.
You're blowing their cover, Jim.
So I need to be you know, clear with people. I'm not going after ideologies. I'm going after harm.
Mm-hmm.
And these operations that I'm exposing are harmful at their core. That's the purpose, to deceive people and to weaponize them. I did one tweet about Chapo, and 650 fucking thousand people came to visit me.
They like you. They really like you.
And that
We're
was
job
because
creators.
it's an organized trolling operation, a gatekeeping operation to make sure that the new guy, the crazy guy who just came back to Twitter, that everybody thinks he's fucking crazy.
Well, if everybody thinks he's fucking crazy except D. Snyder, then how can I be down, right? How can I be down?
I'm just saying, yeah, if D. Snyder has my back, so fuck you, trolls.
He totally has your back. That's like the coolest thing ever.
I don't like to do that. I don't like to.
I get to fangirl it. It's a big deal for me because he's on the right side of history. He said, "I don't want these jackasses to use my song," and they continued to do so. He fought back, and then he also knows a good egg. And when he tweeted that he's with you, that meant a lot to me because we fight all day long and it's hard. And so the good eggs are awesome. And shout out to Martina Navratilova. Speaking of good eggs, she's always been in this fight and she now has a fight of her own. And I'm just sending her love and healing vibes and all that good stuff.
Martina is metal, by the way.
She's so metal. She's so metal.
I don't know if people know that about Martina Navratilova.
I love her.
I love her so much. She does not play. She will call a motherfucker out, and she's retweeted me many times. And
the irony is she does play. She does play tennis, but she don't play like Jim is saying.
She don't play tennis.
She don't play. Hey, so this
is that was not a fucking game to her. That was a war.
Yeah. She's amazing.
No joke.
I grew up in a tennis household, and you guys know that one of my mom's tennis partners was Tom Brady's mother, because we all went to the same, as the kids, we all went to the same Catholic school and were part of that same community. And tennis was a super sports big deal in our household. Tennis, big deal in our household. Martina, big deal in our household. So, hi-fi, this is a perfect place, since Jim was saying that we, in our rehumanization efforts, we understand that people may not know that they're actually targeted by this stuff, lured in through ideology or misogyny or whatever. They become, sucked into these various kind of cult opportunities here. I think this is a perfect place, if we have it, to show the clip of Ron Hawthorne, who is a religious man who felt very uncomfortable about voting for Trump. And he is part of Melissa Jo Peltier's The Game Is Up. If we can show that clip, that would be amazing. Look at you go, hi-fi.
I was sitting in the break room with a coworker of mine, and I like to talk about God. I'm one who likes to share my experiences with God. And he asked me, well, why would I want to be a Christian when you guys support such a horrible human being? I was just taken back. It stunned me, it stopped me. I didn't know what to say. I found it hard that day to concentrate on work, because it's like a knife going right through your heart for me to have to face that. And that's how God works on us, He makes us face the things that, where we have shortcomings, and the things he wants to change inside of us. And then I was reading the Bible and reading some scripture, and and some verses jumped out at me. And I read this. There are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. And it was just like, boom, there it is. It's the exact opposite of who Christ was. And that really stuck me. I knew.
What's the exact opposite of Christ? What's he saying there, right? He's just coming out and saying it. And I love that so much. I love that guy.
Me too.
That clip right there, like, I'm gonna keep sharing it. Just especially the whole thing, the whole movie is amazing. But when he calls out the specific, Bible passages, right, that are literally a description of Donald Trump, like, you can't deny, even on the other side, that he's, fits these categories. I thought that was a brilliant piece.
Yes.
And be shared with as many people as possible on either side, right? This is a guy who's a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
And
what's interesting?
Trump's the fucking Antichrist.
What's interesting about him is he and his wife always had misgivings about Trump. So they went to their pastor, and their pastor said, look, God, delivers messages through imperfect vessels. We need the judges that he's going to ensure, the tax breaks, whatever. So begrudgingly, he voted for him, but he never felt right about it. And then he had that, kind of that moment in the break room at work. And I know you got your finger up, hi-fi, but I want to finish this. That clip is from a very important film. Again, I'll repeat. It's from The Game Is Up by director Melissa Jo Peltier. You can find it on Amazon for $4.99, or you can watch it free on YouTube and Tubi. It's very important for those who have had family members taken from them through the Trump cult to watch it. And then also maybe it can be the thing that helps people find the words to bring their family members back. Hi-fi.
The thing that makes me the angriest about that whole story of how his pastor convinced him to vote for Trump was that he used the story of King Cyrus, of Cyrus the Great. And that was the imperfect vessel that the Lord used to do his will. Whatever. If you know anything about Cyrus the Great, you know that Cyrus conquered a vast empire, and he was one of the first rulers in the recorded history of human civilization to ensconce human rights into law. And to look at Donald Trump, someone who is obviously threatening human rights for Black and brown people, LGBTQ people, women, all of it, whoever, how could you equate the two men? I don't get it. So that pastor needs a severe talking to.
Well, as Gal was saying, they recruit those pastors to deliver exactly that kind of message, so they can get swaths of the population voting against their own interests. I wanted to point out that when we record the episode, that's when Hi-Fi is usually, on his best behavior and uses the 4 and 5 syllable words. And on Rad Pod and Chill, not usually so much. So I just found that recitation that you just gave there quite impressive for this being a Thursday night.
I'm well and truly intoxicated. I can just do that when I'm intoxicated too.
You may have crossed over some. There may be a boundary at some point where it gets better again. I don't know. Because Heidi's right. You're you're still at a very slow and deliberate pace, but that's okay. We love that about you.
We are not trying to stir up the Hi-Fi, okay? We like this Hi-Fi, so let's just Hi-Fi.
The secret is indica. Anyway.
that actually is the secret.
The secret code is 420.
We have
We
have some news that I want to talk about. I wrote something called "The Fascists Have No Clothes," and it was a very deliberate kind of essay report on how easy it is to spot the fash once you know where and how to look. And so we're going to have a lot of people right now auditioning for Trump's role in the extremist party, formerly known as the GOP. They want that Kremlin cadre cash. And so they're going to come in all shapes and sizes. We got a taste of a few of them. Ruth Ben-Ghiat warned about the strong women like strong men. We got a bit of a taste of that. I'm just now also for my members doing written audio versions of some of the print stories, and that's actually been really fun. That is me singing the only song I know the lyrics to at the Viper Room, Operation Ivy's Knowledge. The reason I always sing that song is because it has one lyric, because that's how I roll. If I have to remember a bunch of lyrics, I can't do it. So I always sing the same song. But it's really fun. So anyway, I think that the more we know, I always talk about Jason Stanley. My Substack is an anti-fascist fanzine of people like Ruth Ben-Ghiat and Jason Stanley and Nancy McLean, and many of the guests we have on our show. But when people understand the words they use, the techniques they use, the gesticulations that they use, the narratives of always imagining this mythic cherry-picked past, always playing the victims against the crazy liberals or whatever, always with the propaganda, always with conspiracies and unreality, sexual anxiety being a big one. I watched a little clip of Ron DeSantis. He did it all, except instead of being like Mussolini, he was a lot more like Charlie Chaplin in The Great Dictator. His gesticulation was just like pathetic, but it had the strong man, glare, and he couldn't answer the question that was thrown at him about book burning. So he did the classic Hannah Arendt deflection. That's a totalitarian trick They deflect to question the motive of who might be asking the question. In this case, he cast shade on school unions. And then at the very last thing he said, yeah, and something about kids having sex. Like, he's so obsessed with youth sex that I referred everybody to the 84-second clip of Kira Giles about the most virulent Russian propagandists. But, you know, we're going to have to endure these people and the media's inability to frame them properly. So I ask everybody to please recognize
the media's. How about law enforcement? I mean, Rapey McForehead isn't being charged. Well, what the hell is that?
I mean, we were talking about this earlier. It's always projection, right?
Right.
I mean, there are so many things out there that are currently just projections that, you know, these memes, right? The one world government is currently a huge meme that's getting promoted by Elon Musk and his allies, you know, which is literally what they are trying to do, right? They're using, not ironically, nationalism and xenophobia to create divisions inside nations to break down global liberal democracy so they can replace it with an oligarchy.
Yeah.
That's what they want. They want a global oligarchy with them in charge, and our democracy, our freedom is in their fucking way. And that is the name of this entire game. All of this shit, all the psyops and propaganda and radicalization and anger is about breaking down societies and governments to break it down so that they can reform it into what? A one world theocratic fascist state, right? With you know, multipolar, in Dugin's words, you know, Russian Empire over here, and God knows what kind of American fascist fucking, you know, Handmaid's Tale bullshit we're going to have over here is their plan, right? That's projection. There's another one. It's the rise of the Fourth Reich has been out there constantly, right? That could not be more projection. If you, the conspiracy theory is about the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, right? Which is Flynn's whole thing. And they're calling that the Fourth Reich when they are literally mirroring the fall of Weimar Germany here in America right now, like line by line, script by script, right? The whole operation is designed to create conspiracy theories about real conspiracies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was telling you,
and it's to do it, and I'll finish here. It's always helpful to call someone out first for the thing that you have done, right? Like if I say, "Oh, Heidi, you're a pedophile," I'm sure the trolls are going to cut that out or something.
I'm sure not. I'm sure not.
If I, you know what I mean.
I do. We better check the record of whoever is saying that. So what I asked you earlier, Jim, obviously not you. What I asked you earlier, Jim, is because there's so much projection going on in these extremist narratives. I was wondering if it was because they were too cheap to pay, you know, writers to come up with new plot lines. But Gal said something really interesting when she said, well, it's basically so it's easier for them to keep the story straight. Because if they're projecting something that they already are when it comes back at them. And then there's also the question of the muddying of the water. When all of this is going back and forth, that goes back to the Peter Pomerantz line, you know, where nothing is, what is the line? Nothing is real and everything is possible. It's like it becomes, people become numb to even trying to seek out or sort out the truth. And we are trying to make sure we don't have that numbness. And At some point, I don't know, maybe this is a good place, the half-hour mark after you go hi-fi, but I do want to run the second clip where we get to see the termite clip if we have that. That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we have that.
There was another thing, you brought up, sort of making the truth impossible to figure out, right? So, there's this HBO special or movie, White Noise, which is sort of eerily like what happened, in East Palestine, right? And Mike Flynn does the full Q, right? Q said over and over and over again, there are no coincidences. This was like hundreds of times. Do you believe in coincidences? In order to break down people's rational thought, right? So Flynn is like, seems like there must be some kind of conspiracy here because HBO did a thing that was similar to this thing last year or whatever, and then said, literally said, or something very close to, do you believe in coincidences? To which I quote tweeted Q drops and all of that. But the point is that they are trying to break down our reality, because by breaking down our reality, it breaks down our society.
Yeah. Yes. And one thing, hi-fi, it's always very important that we remind our viewers, especially those who are just tuning in, we are engaged in cognitive warfare. We are a target nation of cognitive warfare. That means that our minds are the battlefield. So if things feel weird, it's because they are. Please watch our episodes. We've got 60 of them now to meet the greatest minds explaining what this war is and what it looks like, and how to best look after your family. Hi-fi and Z.
So the quote you were looking for, Heidi, was "Nothing is true, anything is possible," and that actually comes to us from Hassan-e Sabah.
Oh yeah,
he was an Islamic militant a very, very, very long time ago. But I would also like to offer up the following. I guess you'd call it kind of a confession. That was also a phrase I used when I established my first little cult experiment. I would repeat that to people. Nothing is true. Anything is possible.
True confession.
And it became kind of a mantra.
You just buried a lead there that I think can't.
I know.
Right. Well, here's the thing, though. I'd like to point out there are. Hold on. There are a couple other things that are useful when it comes to building a cult. One is drugging followers, right?
That's the Charles Manson technique.
Charles Manson technique. MK Ultra, drugs as mind control. People get susceptible when they're under the influence. This is a known fact, right? I would point out that America has an opioid crisis.
Yeah.
People are under the influence, right? The other is repetition of message. That's why I kept saying that over and over and over. It makes them question their reality, and it also
created your cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't get that big, and I let it fall apart because it got weird.
Yeah.
It was an experiment, man. I was in my early 20s.
It's shocking that it got weird.
I'm not going to tell the story, but it got weird, okay?
Hey, you tell the story, and if anybody wants to hear the story, they can go to the fireside chat that I did with Hi-Fi, where you learn a lot about him. It's on our YouTube, and we're going to have a fireside chat with Hi-Fi interviewing me and me interviewing Jim, which we'll post at some point. Before we show that clip of the termites, I want Angela to know Sally Hansen Sky-Fi is metallic purple. That is that's not code. That's literally like, there's other people out there who are crazy about nail polish. So let it rip.
Is it the same guy who the paint people pay to name, fucking eggshell cream off-white, or whatever?
Oh.
They name them, is that the same people, or are they different people?
I don't know. I'm not even sure what you're talking about.
you go to Duran paint store and you go to pick a paint.
All the little paint chips, and they change every quarter.
Somebody has to name all this fucking thing.
Yeah, somebody has to come up with that crap. It's the same CYMK code, but it's a different name.
Somebody has a job to name this stuff, and
there's job creators.
Yeah, I want that job too. Skyfi.
I have to before we watch the termites. I have to address somebody in the chat said having a cult can be handy.
It's yes. certainly can when you want to brainwash large swaths of people.
But here's the problem, and I'm going to point this out. When you build yourself a cult, you're exploiting people. You're exploiting some vulnerability, or you're using cognitive warfare on them. You're using mind tricks on them. And here's what I would say to people. Do you want to be exploited? Because I don't want to be exploited. And once I really realized that's what it was all about, that's another reason I stopped.
I want to be sedated, but I don't want to.
I also want to be super clear about something.
What?
Cults are not actually necessarily bad things.
Well, there's communities and there's groups.
Hold on. I learned this from Dr. Stephen Hassan, the world's expert on cults, told me this.
Then I defer.
That cults are not automatically bad. It's coercive cults, authoritarian cults, harmful cults. It's cults that create involuntary undue influence, right? Like there are people who are in like band cults or whatever. Like you could call some band like Grateful Dead heads, running around the fucking country in their van. Like, is that a cult? Yes, it is. I mean, like according to Dr. Hassan, you can call that a cult, but it's not necessarily a coercive one. It's not authoritarian. It's not necessarily harming people, right?
No, it's a bunch of happy people selling T-shirts.
I just want to point out that you can have a cult that isn't necessarily coercive or harmful.
So what I would like to do, thank you for that. I don't think it was a TED Talk, but it felt like a PSA. Thank you for that, Jim. Little PSA-ish. What I would really like to do is I'll have Hi-Fi introduce the clip, but I just want to say it was very important to me personally that for our 60th episode, which was a very landmark, moment for us, that we extended an olive branch to Trump supporters who are really wondering what the hell just happened to them in the last 7 years. And I do think this film is for them. And this particular farmer from Ohio is absolutely your guy, folks. Yes, Hi-Fi.
Oh, I just forgot what I named the file, so I'm looking for it right now.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
Well, while he looks...
Termites. Ohio farmer.
Did I call it termites?
Yeah, but you call it termites.
And by the way, Chunk rules the world.
Chunk.
So Chunk does all the animation in this movie. It's fucking awesome.
Hey, guess what?
Oh Jesus, you suck so bad, man. Come on.
It's called Termites.
Oh yeah.
Let me give you an example of how Trump has proceeded to ravage through the American people. It goes like this. People were frustrated before President Trump. It was like, say you've got termites in your house, okay? You've hired 2, 3 exterminators to come in over the years, and they all have pretty much the same procedures, the same chemicals, but it's still there. It's still bugging you, to coin a phrase. So this new guy comes into town. He's got new white trucks, gold lettering, of course. He claims he's got new procedures, new chemicals, a new process, a new way of doing business. And you know what you do? You say, you know what? I haven't been satisfied with these other vendors. I'm just going to try this new guy. Because, hey,
what do you have to lose?
What have I got to lose? We call him up. He comes roaring up the driveway, jumps out of his truck, walks right up to your front door, throws a Molotov cocktail in, burns your house clean to the ground. He turns, he says, termites are gone, and he hands you a bill. That's what we've got in the United States. Total destruction, and he's handing us the bill just because we thought he had a new idea.
What do you have to lose?
Chunkled.
I remember that so well. The what do you have to lose line?
Chunkled.
That. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that what you just saw there was the combination of a great storyteller, that Ohio farmer, conservative, by the way, combined with the animation of Chunkled, who we learned's real name is Donnie Gillespie. Animation isn't even his full-time job. That's like a hobby. He does the 5/8, which I'm sure you all know. And also Melissa Jo Peltier's vision. So I cannot emphasize enough how important that film is.
Yeah, she can direct too, by the way.
Really yeah. What's so beautiful about her direction is the way she just got out of people's way. That is a real skill, when you give people the space to tell their story and their truth in a way that is so authentic. And I think that film could appeal to young people too. Perhaps there's some people in the Turning Point USA cult right now who are starting to wonder if they've been had. Watch Melissa's film and learn how a young rising star in the Republican Party, who was all in drinking the Kool-Aid, got out. She had a moment in the Charlottesville, protest, that whole scene, where she heard Trump say good people on both sides, and all of a sudden she had a psychic shift and she thought about her family members who'd perished in the Holocaust, and she said, And it was brave. It's brave when you're a member of a community to step out and say, no, I'm not having any of that. So,
I mean, it's brave by definition, by design, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order, so the bad version of cults, right?
Mm-hmm.
They all do this thing where they make it very, very painful for you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because you will lose all of your friends. First of all, they make you get rid of all of your other friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in extreme cases, your family.
Mm-hmm.
So the only people that you have relationships are, the people in the cult. And unfortunately, now you can do that shit online. You can have an entire family, thousands of people, all you spend all day with, doing, whatever the cult leader wants you to do. And everyone else is rejected as a heretic. There's so many of these now.
Yes.
Speaking of cult leaders, I need to go in on somebody for a hot minute. Because this dude, this
he's not a cult leader. He's a cult. He's in a cult.
Oh no, he's a follower. This guy over here with the Tesla, he's one of the cult leaders.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
But this guy is a simp, right? And you know why this guy is a simp? Look, man, I didn't buy a Tesla before Elon came out as a fascist. All right. And there's a very good reason for that. There's a website out there called Tesla-Fires. And you see this total fatalities, that's just from battery fires. That's 53, right?
Jeez.
Incidents, 182, right? So Bill Maher, he goes on his show and he runs his mouth about how awesome Tesla is, right? And then what happens?
The next day.
Hey, Bill, you're in a fucking cult, dude. Get out now. Stop listening to the dark web people. Become a normie again. Try to be funny. Yeah, you're not a philosopher, dude.
That's not gonna happen, unfortunately. I don't think with Bill.
You think he's in too deep?
Very, very tight in. So yeah, Bill Maher, I've been saying this for several years now, is infected with the intellectual dark web.
Yeah.
The intellectual dark web, if you don't know, is Peter Thiel's QAnon for rich people. That is literally what it is. You got like Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein, the Weinstein brothers, both of whom are literally Peter Thiel's employees, who started this group of scientists and doctors who have been willing to use their credentials, many of which are real, to lie to people, to make bullshit up about stuff like ivermectin, and to run ops about how college, like you see Bill Maher fucking hates college, hates the whole idea.
That's a Peter Thiel thing, yeah.
That is exactly a Peter Thiel thing. That is literally taken directly from the intellectual dark web. He had Barry Weiss. He has Barry Weiss on every other week. Barry Weiss is the one who made the intellectual dark web a thing with an enormous puff piece on Eric Weinstein in the New York Times. That's how the intellectual dark web got started, and she's like Bill Maher's favorite guest.
Hey,
the dude, he's had Weinstein, he's had all these fuckers on, and Tulsi, and Jesus Christ, on and on.
You know what that whole TED Talk just had, Jim? You know what that had? A shitload of these.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Thank you.
So
we might need a couple more of those.
I can only play it like 3 times tops.
There's a backlog though. I mean, I said Peter Thiel a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot of Peter Thiel.
So let's see if we have any of our OG followers in the house.
But the important part is about this new one is the direct. Sorry, Heidi, but just to finish, the direct simping for Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And he says specifically, just because he's conservative.
Yeah, that's not what.
If you don't want
to, it's because he makes death trap cars.
Yes, but he compares it to like Nazi Germany doing business with
that was unfucking cool
and shit like that. Right? He brings up the fucking Nazis, of course, and then Elmo comes in and replies to it like, exactly, Bill. But I'm a moderate.
Yeah. I would like everybody who hasn't to read my unmusked story in Byline Supplement, where Fiona Hill talks about Musk passing messages for Putin, and Michael McKay, the great Canadian academic, talks about Musk turning Twitter into Vkontakte. Please look at that. Don't get confused on what's really going on here. So response,
he tweets Hitler memes.
I know of Trudeau. Oh, so more.
Well, no, but he does 88 all the time, which is a signal for how Hitler. He does Wojak memes from.
He does Pepe memes,
Pepe memes.
He's gonna be calling in all his friends. He's so freaking unpopular.
Not a moderate.
He's so unpopular. He's going to be calling in all his friends to try to simp for him at this point, and it's so sad. So it'd be really sad if he wasn't hurting our world so bad. So here's what I wanted to say in response to Jim's TED Talk 1.5 or whatever. I wrote an article, Expose PSYOPs, Fight Fascism. I've got this whole Fight Fascism toolkit, and I'm going to repeat a quote from Wes Clark Jr. that I think sums up what you said quite brilliantly, Jim. This is the quote that we talked about last week, but not everybody watches every episode. As my friend Wes Clark Jr. wrote so brilliantly, it's an oligarch insurgency riding on a wave of malcontent, religious zealots, incels, racists, and other retrograde dipshits who operate under the mistaken belief that the very people responsible for the present dystopia will somehow fix everything if they have unchecked power.
And I would like to give a shout out to MSNBC for picking the word retrograde up because that's been showing up in their vocabulary quite a bit lately. So good job.
Well, I'm sure we threw it right into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I didn't know. But retrograde dipshits is the best. phrases of all time.
Well, I don't know if they're allowed to say dipshits, are they?
And by the way, Wes can write his ass off.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Wes should write some books.
I'm actually waiting for Wes to call me up and say, yo, when are we going to write something? Because I think that'd be hot. Like, I want to write with Wes. Wes is so special and so kind. I know this is my pitch. I'm pitching it to Wes. He's not watching, I'm sure.
It's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot. Because we're sort of similar people in that we believe what people tell us. LOL.
Yes. Well,
less and less. Do you know what I do now? You guys already know this. Jim knows this. Anybody who has anything that they want to talk to me about, I'm like, talk to Hi-Fi. And they never do. It's like he's like my one-man army.
That's because everybody knows I will call them on their bullshit.
It's like either they're trying to psyop me and they know that they don't have any game if they have to go to you, or they don't, whatever it is they want to talk to me about maybe isn't what they want to talk to me about. I don't know what's going on. I just know I refer everybody to Hi-Fi and then they never call him.
It's funny because
if you want to mix it up, you can send them to me too. I'm pretty sure I'll have the same effect.
It's funny because when I used to throw underground parties back in the early aughts, and we had some great parties, I always used to be the bouncer at the door. And
You're totally my bouncer still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once a bouncer, always a bouncer, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was just thinking back on something. You know how we talk a lot about ops and psyops and cognitive warfare and things like that, and people are like, "You people are crazy. Nothing like that is going on." I was just reading a story the other day about the Ohio First Energy scandal.
And with Hi-Fi, you can't go along without an Ohio moment.
Well, it's
Oh, look at that
anyway.
though. That's important. Yeah.
Yes, but black ops, man. I mean, it's so obvious now. Everybody should be like.
It's not though.
Wow.
It's obvious to us, but it's not. I was reading something that President Jackie Singh sent where in discovery it became very clear in this particular case that one of the folks involved had, a massive troll operation going against a target, and we just shrug. It's like, what are we doing in America to allow these harms to continue? I don't know what to say other than we're fighting it. We're going to keep fighting it,
Yeah. We don't, and I've said this before, but we don't have a domestic capability to combat this stuff. We simply don't.
We would if we had the resources and the wherewithal and the leader stepping up to intervene. Is
it possible? Yes, but the reason is understandable, although not anymore, right?
Yes.
So, the concern is you set up a bunch of psyops people to, point at Americans, no matter what, that is going to get misused. And in fact, the fucking FBI and the CIA have done a lot of really bad shit and infiltrated a lot of groups, especially on the left, in fact, and turned them upside down and broken them apart. These
makes me sad.
These kinds of operations actually happen. So the idea of setting that up officially is understandably scary, and we don't actually have laws that make that possible, right? You can't use the military, which is where most of our psyops capabilities are, against American citizens for very fucking good reasons.
I am right.
So we need I'll finish in a sec. We need an alternate to that. And so my modest sort of contribution is leading by example.
Yeah.
You can fight these fuckers on the battlefield. It is possible. And if we can figure out a way to get more organized and more efficient, then you know, the few of us out there who are, you know, really kind of going at it.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
We can make a dent.
Actually, I have a bet and a challenge. And here's my bet, Heidi. Heidi and I have a little bit of an ideological difference. I say that there is no such thing as a good billionaire.
And I say that is not true.
So here's my challenge.
I know one personally. She's awesome.
All right. So here's my bet, Heidi. Here's my bet. I'm going to bet you $1.
Why didn't you give us some then? Sorry.
That not one billionaire will take me up on this challenge. And here's my challenge. Billionaires, if you're out there and you're listening, we have a vast problem that can only be solved by civilian means. And one of those means that is required
digital soldiers.
Hold on. No, I'm stop for a second, Jim. I'm being serious.
Oh no, I'm scared.
One of those things that is required to run, because when you have a networked insurgency forming in your country, the only thing that can take it out is a counterinsurgency. And a counterinsurgency requires funding. So if there's a billionaire out there who's not really part of the class war and thinks that everything that's going on is fucked up, contact Heidi and we'll make some financial arrangements.
Holla. Just contact me and I'll turn you over to Hi-Fi, and then you won't call, and then I'll have
so that's my bet with you, Heidi, that no billionaire will take me up on that challenge.
Well, we'll see, because what my concern is, a billionaire will take us up on it and then we'll get opt. What I love about what we do is we are independent, bare bones.
I know how the ops run.
All right. Okay. So the reason I'm pointing at this cup,
I've also dealt with my share of billionaires.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen all their fucking tricks at this point.
Yeah. Bastards. So listen, the reason I'm pointing at this cup is my friend Sharon made this for me. Her sister did the design. This is an example of something that got infiltrated. So just like the Women's March, just like Standing Rock, the March Against Fascism, all this good stuff that we start here in order to fight back against what we know is wrong gets infiltrated. And that is that's a tragic truth of what we're going through during these times. But Jim, I want to say something. I have, every time I write anything about fascism for my Fight Fascism toolkit, I have to remind myself that I need to include that boilerplate language. So now I'm just tagging Merriam Webster dictionary, because I don't want to have to keep repeating it. But you have a much simpler definition of fascism, which I would like to have you tell our viewers.
Fascism is fascism is organized sociopathy, is one way to put it, right? Okay. So fascism is the acquisition of power at the expense of human beings.
Okay.
If you do stuff, whether it's in business or religion or whatever, that is intentionally transferring power to yourself and harming other people in the process, and you know about it, you're a fucking fascist.
Okay.
That's basically how I feel about it, because there isn't, there are many political definitions for it, and political scientists go on and on about it, but at its core, it is greed and over your fellow human. Yeah. And I think when you kind of, and greed meaning power, not necessarily only
right. Money. It's a pursuit of power. I thank you for that. I worked on a story most of today that looks back at the facts that occurred during the early days of the pandemic. Facts are real things. And there were interruptions of those facts that were part of the same network that we talk about on our show all the time. And I want some goddamn accountability for what happened in our country and all the losses of lives because of these fascists that were in power at that time. So that's what I want.
I mean, it's worth repeating over and over and over again. Until we deal with 2016, we cannot face this. Because everything fucking flows from there.
Yes,
All
that's
of
right.
Stuff. Like
Yes.
all of these ops leading up to 2016 were about overturning the election, and then all the ones after that were about trying to cover that up and keep Trump in power. All of them.
Yeah.
And you can still see it. They're still russiagating all fucking day long.
All day long.
They're terrified of it. They
Yeah.
are terrified
Because they're all
of
culpable.
real facts about 2016. So they
That's
make all
right.
this shit up about alphabet and all kinds of crap. And it confuses everybody, and everybody's bluing on if you point out the obvious fucking fact. For example, that Charles McGonigal, the head of terrorism at the New York FBI, was a Russian fucking asset, and he is the one who made Comey reopen the Hillary Clinton investigation. That is a Russian asset stealing the fucking election right there.
And Business Insider reported today that British authorities who had a Russian contact under surveillance when McGonigal met with him in 2018. So this is a story far, far from over, and we're just scratching the surface of the implications. Hi-Fi, this is our hour. Take us out, bro.
I would just like to say to the author of that article for Business Insider, I gave you a lot of shit for your first 2 articles, my guy. And this third one, you absolutely nailed it. I'm proud of you.
High praise from Hi-Fi.
I'm a picky son of a bitch, so
he is a picky son of a bitch. I've seen his paint chips. He's a picky son of a bitch.
I was some dark web shit right there, man.
Actually, that was Hi-Fi giving a compliment, and I concur. So I'm gonna log off and start writing my ass off because there's stuff going on that we need to keep people informed about.
Nothing going on.
Just a little.
good night, kids.
Jeez.